it is absolutely essential for any theological education to include, and not only to include, but really to underline, to highlight the ecumenical dimension. This aspect is so important because we cannot imagine any progress of ecumenism without this ecumenical dimension. The way towards unity supposes that we form people who want unity, who understand unity, and who work for the unity. So it must be a big preoccupation and desire of all churches to include this ecumenical dimension. We cannot imagine a real theological education, especially professional theological education, without a well underlined dimension of ecumenism. When we look at, on the results of the ecumenical movement, since many years we've been involved in trying to reunite the Church of Christ. Unfortunately, so far, the Church is still divided. But when we consider what is the attitude towards each other in the churches now and 50 years ago or 60 years ago, we see completely different attitudes. We see a big change, a real shift from an attitude of non-acceptance to attitude not only to acceptance, but to treat each other as brothers in Christ. And I think that this change is due basically to ecumenical education and to include ecumenism in the theological education in the churches. This ecumenical dimension is of a particular interest and importance for the forming of two groups of people: professional theologians. Doesn't matter if they're specialists in Bible or systematic theology or moral theology or any other type of theology. They all should be focused on understanding these theological matters from an ecumenical perspective. The second is forming and preparing the pastors, the ministers for the churches. They need to understand that pastoral ministry calls also for an ecumenical attitude. This is why when we train pastors, ministers, those who are actively participating, organizing life of our churches, we really need to make sure that they receive a good theological formation, including ecumenical aspects. This is why it's so important that we not only insist on this ecumenical aspect when forming in our churches, but also that we develop among us possible kinds of ecumenical collaboration in the field of theological formation, theological training. From a Catholic perspective, we have different kinds of ecumenism. We have at least or 3 or 4. We have the doctrinal ecumenism, we have pastoral ecumenism, we have spiritual ecumenism, and we can also speak about cultural ecumenism, and maybe about different kinds of ecumenism. I think that the churches, if they really want to make a progress towards the full visible unity, they need to invest balanced forces in all of these kinds of ecumenism. If we focus only on one kind, like for example practical cooperation or social issues or questions of justice and peace or promoting human person and human rights, we cannot at the same time forget about other, according to me, absolutely necessary ways of continuing our ecumenical journey. I think we need more spiritual ecumenism in our ecumenical journey. I think that this is very often, too often, limited to Week of Prayer of Christian Unity. I think we should develop together really spiritual meetings, like spiritual retreats for church leaders together, or this kind of experience where people meet not to resolve problems, but to pray together, to share their faith in a spiritual context. I would like to underline our collaboration with the Ecumenical Institute in Bosse. We have always one professor who is teacher at the faculty of Bosse, and we are very pleased and happy and glad that the first time in the history of the Bosse Institute, the Catholic scholar became the dean of the faculty, which is for us a sign of growing trust between the Catholic Church and the World Council of Churches. But also I would like at this point mention that the students and the faculty members and staff of the Bosse Institute every year in January, during the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity, are received in Rome for 1 week long study visit. And we really think that we contribute to ecumenical formation of young people from different churches and different traditions by this collaboration, by receiving them in Rome, in the heart of the Catholic Church, and showing them how the Church looks like from not only from the outside but from inside.